Iran's nuclear ally is now trying to frame the moment as a reality check for Trump, with Russian-linked commentary and wider reporting suggesting the war may have exposed hard limits in America's missile and munitions depth. A Russian lawmaker has portrayed Trump as clearly unprepared for a war against Iran, arguing he may have bought into the illusion that force alone could still produce a fast, clean victory. After the Maduro episode, Trump may have assumed another coercive playbook could work against Tehran too, only to run into a far more entrenched and militarily prepared adversary. Did Trump underestimate Iran so badly that the US military is left confronting an uncomfortable weapons reality, with fresh reporting pointing to depleted stockpiles and renewed concern over sustaining another major round of fighting? A Russian lawmaker said the United States was clearly unprepared militarily for a war against Iran, arguing Washington had underestimated the scale and duration of any serious confrontation. Alexey Pushkov said the US relied on what he described as a misguided belief that military force could quickly deliver results, suggesting American planners expected faster political and battlefield gains than they were likely to achieve. Al Jazeera and other regional reports said Pushkov made the remarks in comments to Russia's TASS news agency, where he sharply criticized the broader US approach to the conflict. Pushkov added that the US reading of the situation may have been shaped in part by its earlier experience in Venezuela, where he suggested Washington had also overestimated the impact of pressure tactics. The Russian lawmaker further claimed that Iran, by contrast, had spent years preparing for exactly this kind of confrontation, including by hardening infrastructure and expanding missile and drone capabilities. Alexey Pushkov said, and I quote, "The kidnapping of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and the very, I would say, weak reaction to it from the Venezuelans who chose to accept American conditions for controlling Venezuelan oil exports, convinced Trump that a precise surgical military operation is a good tool for forcing a foreign regime to behave as the Americans please." After this, Trump apparently decided that something similar could be done in Iran. Iran, on the other hand, had prepared well for a conflict with the US moving virtually all of their missile facilities underground, where they are extremely difficult to reach, and building up a missile and drone arsenal numbering in the tens of thousands. And they have been working on all of this for a long time, preparing both economically and, so to speak, existentially. His remarks came during a pause in fighting, but also at a moment when uncertainty still surrounded the fate of diplomatic efforts and whether talks could produce any durable breakthrough. War could restart soon, with concerns growing over renewed US military preparations, even as analysts and reports pointed to mounting pressure on weapons and missile defense stockpiles. The United States weapons inventory may be under increasing strain, raising concerns about readiness for future conflicts. A report by Business Insider suggests that critical munitions are being consumed at a significant pace during the ongoing Iran war. Over the course of just 39 days, US forces reportedly relied heavily on 7 key weapon systems in coordination with Israel. These findings were highlighted by 2 warfare specialists associated with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. According to defense analysts, such levels of consumption could pose challenges if a larger conflict were to emerge. The report indicates that while the US maintains substantial stockpiles, they may not be sufficient for prolonged or simultaneous wars. Even prior to the Iran conflict, assessment suggested that US stockpiles could be stretched in the event of a major confrontation with China. Experts have warned that replenishing munitions used in the Iran war could take considerable time and industrial capacity. Some estimates indicate that more than half of pre-war inventories for certain systems may already have been expended. The scale of US munitions usage during the Iran conflict is reflected in the numbers below. Around 1,430 Patriot interceptors have reportedly been used out of a total inventory of approximately 2,330 units. 4 SM-3 interceptors. Estimates suggest that between 130 and 250 missiles have been expended from a stockpile exceeding 400. In the case of SM-6 missiles, usage is believed to have reached up to 370 out of an available inventory of about 1,160. Precision strike missiles, considered a newer battlefield asset, have seen between 40 and 70 units deployed from roughly 90 available. Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles have also been used extensively, with more than 850 fired from a stockpile exceeding 3,000. Similarly, around 1,000 joint air-to-surface standoff missiles have reportedly been utilized from an inventory of over 4,000 units. In response, Washington is reportedly moving to expand production and rebuild depleted stockpiles. Lockheed Martin is expected to increase THAAD interceptor production capacity to approximately 400 units annually. Production of Tomahawk missiles is also being scaled up to exceed 1,000 units per year. However, estimates suggest it could take more than 4 years to fully replenish certain key systems. As a result, analysts believe the US could face increased vulnerability in the event of another major conflict. Many of the munitions expended in the Iran war are considered essential for deterrence and operations involving China. Military experts have emphasized the importance of maintaining sufficient long-range strike capabilities for future scenarios. The report further cautions that a potential conflict with China could lead to even faster depletion of US stockpiles. China's Navy has staged a live fire drills east of Luzon just as the Balikatan 2026 exercises put Allied firepower on display nearby, turning the region into a competing show of force. According to agencies, the Chinese Navy conducted a live fire exercises east of Luzon Island amid steadily rising tensions with both the US and Manila. On April 24th, Chinese state media aired tightly edited footage of the drills but conspicuously withheld precise dates and coordinates, keeping the exact scenario ambiguous. Beijing Southern Theater Command said the operations were meant to test sea-air coordination and rapid maneuvering, showcasing how fast its fleet can reposition in a crisis. Official statements described the drills as a necessary operation to safeguard national security, framing them as a response to what China sees as growing external threats. Reports now suggest the PLA's Liaoning Carrier Strike Group is operating east of Luzon alongside these exercises, putting a full Chinese carrier presence on the edge of the first island chain. The group reportedly includes multiple destroyers, frigates, support ships, and amphibious hulls, giving Beijing a balanced force for both offensive and defensive operations. At least one Type 055 destroyer, the Zuni, is said to be leading a task group within that formation, highlighting China's decision to put its most modern surface ship up front. The Type 055 is widely described as Asia's largest surface combatant, with reports noting it can pack around 112 vertical launch cells for a mix of missiles. Analysts say those cells can be loaded with a mix of hypersonic weapons, long-range anti-ship missiles, and advanced air defense interceptors, turning the ship into a floating arsenal. Military analysts argue that by sailing a Type 055 so close to Balikatan, China is deliberately placing its most advanced surface combatant where US and Allied sensors can't miss it. That presence turns the drills into strategic signaling as much as training, reminding Washington that any future blue water fight would involve these heavily armed flagships. Amid all this, online and regional reports have floated claims of a YJ-20 hypersonic missile launch during the operations, hinting that more exotic weapons may have been rehearsed. The launch reports remain unverified, but even the rumors signal a clear escalation in maritime posturing, with hypersonic threats now central to the message. The YJ-20 is described as a ship-launched anti-ship missile built for long-range strike missions, allowing Chinese warships to threaten targets far beyond the horizon. Its reported speed exceeds Mach 6 in cruise, with terminal velocity that could approach Mach 10 as it dives toward its target, shrinking reaction times to seconds. Open-source estimates put its range at roughly 1,500 kilometers, meaning a launch platform can strike deep into an opponent's defensive envelope without sailing close. Analysts say the missile likely uses a boost glide or quasi-ballistic trajectory, making its flight path hard to predict and more difficult for traditional radars to track. It is explicitly designed to go after high-value targets like aircraft carriers and heavily defended naval groups, not just lone surface ships. The weapon is built to punch through layered Aegis-style defense systems and missile intercept shields, exploiting speed and maneuverability to overwhelm defenses. As such, the YJ-20 is seen as a key part of China's anti-access and area denial strategy in the Pacific, raising the cost and risk of any US carrier operation near its shores. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps on April 21st staged public displays of ballistic missiles in several Iranian cities, underscoring the country's emphasis on its missile arsenal amid the ongoing war. The parades took place in Tehran, Kerman, and Arak just hours before President Trump revealed that he was extending the truce, timing the events to coincide with a key diplomatic turn. Iran International reported on April 21st that the missile displays were held against the backdrop of a stalemate in indirect talks, framing them as a political statement as much as a military one. Videos shared by Iranian state media showed ballistic missiles being paraded through residential and urban areas, giving the impression that the hardware is deeply embedded in everyday life. Large crowds were seen waving Iranian flags and chanting anti-US and anti-Israel slogans, reflecting both state-organized mobilization and genuine public anger toward the Western powers. The crowds also chanted slogans praising Iran's military establishment and calling for strikes against Israel, signaling that domestic sentiment remains firmly behind an assertive posture. Hezbollah flags were visible at several locations during the rallies, underlining the ideological and operational alignment between Iran and its regional proxy network. At the Tehran rally, the Garda ballistic missile was prominently displayed in a central square, drawing attention to one of Iran's key long-range systems. In another part of Tehran, the Khorramshahr-4 ballistic missile was also put on display, with state media using the imagery to project reach and deterrence. An image attached to one of the displayed missiles reportedly identified a potential target as Ras Gas, a liquefied natural gas firm in Qatar, suggesting that Gulf energy infrastructure is on Iran's hit list. These displays form part of a broader pattern of regular, ongoing pro-government rallies that have been held across Iran since the war began on February 28. Iran released a video on April 19 showing underground missile and drone launchers, signaling that its strategic weapons infrastructure remains active despite weeks of war. The IRGC-linked video portrayed ongoing overhaul and reconstruction work on Iran's missile and drone stockpiles, suggesting Tehran is trying to showcase recovery and resilience during the ceasefire. IRGC Aerospace Force Commander Saeed Majid Mousavi said the replenishment of arms had been accelerated, according to reporting cited by Iranian outlets. Mousavi said the pace of replenishing weapons increased during the ceasefire period, indicating that Iran used the pause to restore parts of its arsenal. His remarks were reported by WANA and Press TV just ahead of the expected expiry of the ceasefire window. Saeed Majid Mousavi said, and I quote, "Iran's speed in updating and reloading missile and drone launchers have surpassed even its pre-war pace. We are aware that the enemy is incapable of creating such conditions for themselves during the ceasefire. Since the ceasefire began on April 11th, the United States has had to bring in ammunition from the other side of the world in a trickle. They have lost this phase of the war as well. They have lost the Strait, they have lost Lebanon, and they have lost the entire region." Unquote. Mousavi's claims came after US media reports argued that Iran still retained the ability to sustain its missile capability despite the conflict. The Wall Street Journal, citing US intelligence assessments, reported that Iran still has thousands of ballistic missiles in reserve. Those missiles could reportedly be pulled out of hiding or retrieved from underground sites, reinforcing concerns that Iran's strike capacity was not eliminated.